Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Night Vision Open Forum. We are so happy to see all of you here today and so grateful for your interest in Night Vision and your support of Night Vision. My name is Sherry Heron. I am the interim deputy CIO and director of Night Vision. And we're going to talk a little bit about Night Vision as a whole, a brief program update. And then we're going to turn it over to Sarissa Cruz to talk about the service enhancement transformation. And then we'll hear from Jackie Lewis, who will talk to us about training and what that's going to look like moving forward. And then, of course, we will seek your questions and do our very best to answer them. Next slide. That's me, Night Vision Program Update. All right, so first, I'd just like to let you know that you can submit questions to the panel via the Q&A button in the Zoom window. There are no anonymous questions, just wanted you to be aware of that. And also you can upvote those questions and that way we will prioritize those at the end when we're doing our answering Q&A period. So thank you very much for your questions in advance, and please go to the next slide. So I'm just going to briefly cover our goals for Night Vision. Just want to make sure we're all on the same page as to where we are and what we're doing. First, our goal is to implement the Workday HCM and financial ERP system. So that is to replace PeopleSoft HR or HCM and the PeopleSoft financial models or modules. We are working to transform HR and finance service delivery to improve service, standardize processes, and increase efficiency and effectiveness. And that's the Service Enhancement Transformation Project, which you will hear a lot about today. We are implementing enterprise data governance, reporting and analytics platform to enable transparency and timely business decisions based on readily available data that is valid. We're also working with our stakeholders to identify any functionality gaps and work with them to make sure that as we go live with PeopleSoft, with Workday HR and Finance and PeopleSoft HR and Financials go away, that we are not leaving a large gap. So we are working with our stakeholders to make sure that we do have solutions in place. And part of that is our retrofits project and making sure that we've got integrations with PeopleSoft Campus Solutions and other tools across the campus. We're also standardizing our enterprise tools for identity management and low code development and also integrations. So that is something that not too many people see in the front because it's in the background, but it is important for the success of Workday in this program. Next slide, please. As we go through our implementation and throughout this entire project, we are focused on simplification, standardization, using common practices, using Workday first. If Workday can do it, our goal is to let Workday do it and not do it in some other system. And we are moving several other ERP systems into Workday, like NetSuite, Great Plains, and so on. This will be a transformative change. We are transforming the way we do business. So that is part of what we're doing. It is a big change, and we're focused on helping people through that change. Measurable results, part of our reporting and analytics is to allow us to measure the results once we've gone live, but also throughout the project to make sure that we're meeting our goals. And also when we're done, we can measure that efficacy. We plan to be transparent and inclusive. That's also part of our data and analytics program. We want to make sure we have transparent data. We also want to bring things like this to you so that you can ask questions and we can include input and feedback from our stakeholders. And of course, enhance accountability. We are accountable to make sure the progress is successful, but we are also increasing the accountability that we can enable throughout the organization once we go live. And there's more ownership of the processes. There's an accountability for the services that we're providing and holding people accountable to making sure that we can provide that good service and accurate service. Next slide, please. This is just a slide that kind of shows you all the things that are happening. Workday is, of course, that big light blue circle in the center. The service enhancement transformation, that's that transformation of HR and finance services. PeopleSoft retrofits, that's where we're connecting our PeopleSoft Campus Solutions to Workday, making sure that financial aid and student refunds and things like that happen. Tuition gets into Workday. Reporting analytics, that's that analytics platform that we're talking about earlier. Adaptive planning, that's budgeting and forecasting. Many of you have already used that system in the phase 1, but in phase 2, we're replacing it and enhancing the functionality and making sure it's connected with our new Workday account structure. Custom application PeopleSoft, or custom application replacements for PeopleSoft. We abbreviate that as CARP, and that is to replace some of the custom things we've built over the years. And that is in progress, and that will continue beyond the go live of Workday. And then enterprise standard tools, those are those back-end things that are really important for the success of these programs. Next slide, please. So I don't expect you to read all of this, but I just wanted to show you each one of these rows represents some of the circles that are on the previous slide. There's a lot happening in parallel. There are a lot of people working on this. And in some cases that slowed down some services in some areas. So we wanted to thank you for your patience on that. We also wanted to highlight that throughout all these parallel streams, a lot of things will go live on July 1. And then there will be continued work. So as we go live on July 1, there will be some base functionality that we're going to go live with. We want to make sure people get paid, that we can pay our bills, that we can buy things, that we can close our books, that we can hire people. There will be continued enhancements beyond that. So we just want to let you know that we're going to work to make it better and better as time goes by. And the other thing I just wanted to say as we look at this slide is there are so many people involved in this program. So not only are there hundreds of people who've been directly involved in doing the work, in testing, in providing input, providing guidance, there's also thousands of people who will be impacted or who are being impacted by this. So some of that just means changing the way you input your time or look at your pay stub. Some of that means where you do your work, what system you work in. So some people will have large changes to the way they work. Some people will have some small changes. And over time, we expect to see increased performance, increased services, better services, more accurate, more effective. So we just thank you all for all of your support as we go through this and for attending today. Next slide, please. All right, so now I will pass it to Saressa Cruz to talk about service enhancement transformation.
Thank you, Sherry, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about SET today during today's Night Vision Open Forum. Some of the information I'm going to repeat, and then we're going to I'll be able to share some new information with everyone. The first slide I wanted to kind of just come back to, and this is one that we've showed several times, is that this has sort of really been an ongoing process and will continue to be an ongoing process from now till July and beyond. And we're going to go into some of these different phases in a little bit, but one thing I kind of wanted to stress again is to recognize that we all are starting in different places developing these business centers. And also the sizes of these business centers significantly vary. So how quickly things are done in this phase definitely will be impacted, if you will, by those couple different factors. So just kind of want to remind everybody of that. Next slide, please. Next, I wanted to take the opportunity and sort of share my excitement about all the wonderful individuals that have been selected in the lead roles associated with the finance business centers and the HR business centers. I look forward to working with every single one of them to continue to improve our operations here at the university, especially associated with finance, HR, and the post-award activity that's done at the unit level. Next slide, please. So we are in the phase of filling the SET position. So I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about how that activity is happening. The SET leaders that I just showed you on the slide previously have received the names of the interested staff. So what you had expressed interest as your preference in positions and in which business center. We have the ability to start the process to provide offer letters to those individuals beginning March 18th. which March 18th really is the beginning for the business centers. It's probably it will take us through the month of April to fill all of those roles. So that will, and again, that will vary by the different business centers. So please feel free to continue to work with your leads and kind of understand how that timeline will be impacted by those different factors within your business center. Another part of the SET leaders' responsibilities is also to talk with the supervisors, work with the transition teams, and all stakeholders to make sure that everyone is aware of what positions have been filled, what is associated with those individuals that are non-HR, non-finance responsibilities, and tracking that so that ultimately we can ensure that there's no gaps in services for all the units across the university. Last but not least, there has been a workforce team that we're about to kick off or has kicked off associated with logistics so that we can start tackling the things that we knew were coming, which is addressing technology, equipment, space, continuing to have that conversation about determining or leveraging, if you will, hybrid work modes, where we have a blended mode of working on campus and remotely to accommodate the business center's needs. And some of these are limitations that we're looking at. Next slide, please. I wanted to kind of give you a sense of the number of positions associated with SET, and they are broken out into, you can see in the finance business centers, we have currently identified 235, and these can shift as we continue to learn more about roles and responsibilities in the SET and in the non-SET units, excuse me. There's 91 positions in the HR business centers, 13 within the talent acquisition, and 28 within Next, which I wanted to pause a little bit. I'm going to talk about it later, but Next is actually, we previously had identified that as the administrative service center, and a work group had started on the administrative service center and really came up with some exciting guiding principles and really drove us towards renaming that to Next. Next slide, please. And here are those things that those individuals worked on, which was to develop 5 pillars of what they thought would make Next successful. The first one is to always think about the employee's experience and to put our customers, if you will, at the center of operations and to continue to improve upon those to ensure that our processes are gaining the most value for employees, meaning that they're efficient and effective. Customer service, definitely there is a part of Workday that is self-service. And so we want to make sure that if individuals need to do those self-service activities, that they have support within the Next area to help them navigate those new features within Workday. Another part of the Next pillars is developing a relationship with campus to best provide support across the entire university, recognize where we're the same and recognize where we're different to ensure that we can accomplish our operational goals collectively. And the next one, for me, is the most exciting part. I don't think on July 1, everything is going to be perfect, right? So we always have to constantly continue to find ways to innovate and continue to improve our processes. And that is one of the ways in which we'll continue to partner with the business centers and Next to look at those things in Workday. Is there things that we could do differently? Can we change our business processes to continually improve the processes that we provide or the services that we provide? While we do have we're going to have a lot of digital options for us to interact and so forth, but really maintaining that focus on interacting with faculty, staff, student needing our services in person. Maybe that's by phone, or we've developed many other ways to connect now from the things that we've learned from the pandemic, but to really think about how do we provide those services through those forums and not necessarily phone trees or ticketing systems and things of that nature. Next slide, please. I also wanted to talk about SET training for Go Live, and that there's actually 3 different elements associated with the training that's going to be provided to the SET roles. One is system knowledge. The system in which we're going to be performing these services will no longer be PeopleSoft. It will be Workday. In conjunction with learning the new Workday system, there also will incorporate training regarding university knowledge, which is the functional processes and policies associated with those processes. And alongside of that, that change management that we talked about, really trying to make sure that our processes focus on customer service. Next slide, please. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Jackie.
Thank you, Sarissa. Sorry about that. Had to unmute real quick. So thank you everyone for joining us today. And I guess you can call this our feature presentation, because what we really wanted to do as we get closer and closer to training for Workday was start to incorporate expectations of what Workday training will look like, and how we will provide you with the necessary tools and information needed in order to be proactive in your training. Next slide, please. So a lot of you have probably already seen this calendar. This is our training life cycle and kind of our guide to development of training and launching training for Workday. The phase that we're currently in right now is the testing phase. We're nearing very close to user experience testing, which will take place starting at the end of this month. They will be utilizing a lot of the training materials that we've developed and testing them out to make sure that the business processes are accurate, and just to ensure overall quality assurance before we release that information to you as the end user. So just to kind of give you a background on system implementations, generally following the testing of any system implementation, we will undergo what is called a just-in-time training. And just-in-time training is very common to engage and encourage an active learning environment. We want you as faculty and staff to be able to utilize those training materials and at the same time apply them within a training tenant or training environment, so that you can actually learn while you're utilizing those training materials. So as of right now, training development is very much a collaborative process. We are working a lot with our workstream leads to make sure that that information is vetted on a lot of the step-by-step system business processes. And we're also collaborating now with a lot of subject matter experts in different functional areas, who some will end up serving as our trainers when training is launched in May. Next slide, please. So one thing I wanted to do was to bring the community up to speed on what we've done so far and what you can expect these next couple of months as we gear up for training. So we've been holding our Workday community info sessions monthly. Our most previous one was on February 17th. I am working alongside with the SET champions and other SET team members to assist them in developing their own course catalog. A lot of it kind of goes back to what Sarissa said, a lot of the Workday business processes that are SET specific, as in those SET roles will be performing those system business processes. I'm making sure that that information is conveyed to that work team. In terms of our Workday training development, we have 16 learning categories. This is kind of like our library of knowledge, where we are categorizing, we're taking those business processes and we're just essentially categorizing them into different groups and areas so that it's a little bit easier for us to navigate it and for us to provide you with a catalog to navigate that information. And I'm going to be speaking on that in a little bit. We are also constantly updating the website. The About Training webpage now has some updated FAQs on it. And also there is a calendar on the About Training webpage that aligns what pre-training activities are soon to come, just in case you would like to register for any of those. So speaking of pre-training activities, one that we have coming up is our Lunch and Learn Day in the Life virtual series. I will be speaking on that specifically on the next slide, but we are going to be holding that series this month, the month of March, and the first one is going to start next week. We are also, like I stated, collaborating with a lot of subject matter experts in various areas, just to make sure that we're filling those knowledge gaps. And some of them are going to be identified as UCF trainers. And what that primarily means is we are going to provide them with the support to facilitate any training sessions that they feel are necessary for their functional areas and for their groups. And they're going to be looking at what we've identified in the Workday learning categories to make that determination, which is currently what we're doing at the moment. We are drafting and working with that information that they provide us with to kind of finalize a training calendar that will be released in in April, along with our training catalog. And then also we are going to provide additional details regarding training, what you can expect in our upcoming Workday Community Info session. We'll go into a little more detail than we do today. Next slide, please. So I spoke about our Lunch and Learn Day in the Life virtual series. This is really a short webinar where we'll hold like a live demonstration whereas we will demo as if we are a specific type of employee with the university. And this is really just to guide your understanding on what everyday Workday functionality may look like. So our first series will be Day in the Life of a UCF Employee. That will be next Tuesday at 12:30. All of these particular events are going to be held during the lunch hour, which is why we coined the term Lunch and Learn. I also had my colleague share the link in there, the chat, if you would like to register. The following week after that, we're going to hold our Day in the Life of a UCF manager, supervisor. So we'll be doing functionality in there as if we're a manager, essentially, on that week. And then our last series will be Day in the Life of a UCF faculty member or faculty manager. So we'll be demoing some things that you could possibly encounter as either a faculty member or a faculty manager. Next slide, please. So I always like to revisit this information to help the community understand, especially if they're just now starting to tune into night vision and learn more about Workday training, exactly what training will look like. I know this isn't new information for some of you, but I just want to highlight that with just-in-time training, we are going to be trying to accommodate various work styles and learning preferences. So we really want to offer a combination of on-demand learning as well as real-time learning so that you as the end user will have that choice and that option based on what your current work schedule is and what your preferences are. So the real-time learning, that's going to involve our UCF trainers. It's really going to be the training sessions that are made available through our published training calendar, which will be published probably around mid-April timeframe. We'll definitely let you know ahead of time when that's coming. But these are sessions that are like instructor-led workshops, virtual webinars, open learning labs, for examples, or office hours. So that's all real-time learning. And all of that information and logistical details will be a part of our training calendar. We are also going to provide you with on-demand learning materials. So because the Workday system is not yet available, we are going to conveniently provide this to you through our training catalog, which will be made available through our Night Vision website. So you would be able to access materials such as job aids, video demos, cheat sheets. You will be able to access that through our Night Vision website, and we will provide more information on access instructions for those materials as we get ready to publish our training catalog. We did have some question about adding notes, adding tips. I know we have a lot of people out there that utilize those resources for UCF financials or the PeopleSoft system. Job aids are the same thing as adding notes. We don't have a fun branding term for that, but those are step-by-step guides. And then in terms of the adding tips, that's a lot of the cheat sheets and the infographic handouts that you currently see being published through our newsletter. Those are very similar. And we're working with our leads and our subject matter experts to get more and more of those developed in preparation for go live. Next slide, please. So in general, how exactly will access work? Well, keep in mind that security access will be based on your current job role with the university. And we're going to make sure that there's training available for various roles, not just certain roles. We have a lot of different combinations of roles with UCF, so we are proactively trying to ensure that all of those different functional areas are taken care of during the training development process. Upon go live, Workday will be accessible by logging into the My UCF. And that's very similar to what we do with some applications today as well. Next slide, please. All right, so I spoke earlier about our Workday learning categories, and here is a brief glimpse into what exactly that looks like. Our categories are really I call it our library catalog. For anybody that remembers when you actually used to go to a library and pull the drawer open and just go through the catalog. That is very similar to how we are categorizing our different system business processes so that we can pull that information as it's needed for SET or as it's needed for a particular training session. So it's a very organized way to be able to identify those system business processes, but also to work on building a training catalog that is easily understandable for you as the end user to check out. So for our first section of learning categories, this is really going to be our employee or manager self-service type of categories. So you'll have the getting started for all employees. You'll have the Workday for managers business processes for all managers, for example. Depending on the type of employee you are, exempt versus non-exempt, you'll have Workday pay and absence information, and then you'll have Workday time tracking. And then of course, Workday learning will be available to all users. So that's just an example of how we have helped guided the learning by categorizing a lot of this information. And then for the specialty roles, those are more role-based type of categories, what you do in your current career with UCF. And we've basically categorized those different business processes under each one of these so that you will have a an easier time navigating through the information and establishing your learning path. And that is something I'm going to discuss with you in a second. Next slide, please. So what exact kind of information is in a Workday category? So this is just a graphical representation of the type of information you can find in a category, and it's very similarly structured to maybe like what you would see in a course. Not all categories will be courses. However, we will let people know about that information later because we are still mapping roles accordingly. But for this particular preview, I wanted to show you what was in our employee self-service category, which is Workday Essentials. This is a category that's for all employees, for example. We will mention prerequisite recommendations. So for this one, we may say, hey, take a look at our Workday transition guide first before you start going through these job aids and these demos that are located within this category. So that's an example of how we'll help you guide you on your learning this information. The bulleted list under each module or section, those are business processes. So those are different system-related tasks that you can do in employee self-service, such as learning how to use Workday Search, learning how to use the inbox. And a lot of these are things that we already tried to introduce you to and show you ahead of time, just to kind of help guide you on your learning path on that. Next slide, please. So what exactly do I mean when I say learning path? Well, that is you proactively taking the step to look at our catalog and determine what your learning needs are. The catalog is going to be very detail oriented. It's going to have descriptions. It's going to have business processes associated with that particular category. It may even have recommendations, requirements. All of this is information that will be pertinent to you as a UCF employee so that you can determine what skill set is needed in preparation for Workday Go Live. So this is really an overarching example of how you can determine your learning path proactively once we get this information published and out to you as an end user. So first, you would always want to start with the beginning steps and the beginning coursework. So you would want to start becoming knowledgeable of that self-service information. So are you an exempt or non-exempt employee? Are you a manager or supervisor? And based on your responses to that, you will determine what self-service category you need to pay attention to or learn at your own pace. So you would basically just access those training materials, learn it at your own pace, or perhaps you would watch a recorded webinar for that particular self-service if we make that available. Or you may say, hey, I would just rather be in a session. So you would register for the sessions that are associated with those particular categories for self-service, for example. From there, after you learn the basic navigation of Workday and functionality, then you kind of want to get more granular and say, hey, I need to do more things that deal more with my functional area and my job roles and responsibilities. So then you would start to look at more the role-based training that we have within our specialty roles. And you would look at those categories and business processes located under them to help guide you on what you need to know. Now, again, remember, there's going to be a lot of different training delivery methods for this. We're not going to just say, oh, all of that under procurement, for example, is just going to be a web course and that's it. We want to make this open educational resources for everyone because this is how you can be successful upon Go Live. So please, if you are able to, please plan to attend our Workday Community Info session where I can go over some examples on a learning path and how you can determine by looking at the training catalog when we publish it and the training calendar, how to align that with your job roles and responsibilities. Next slide, please. So as you're doing that and starting to think of the categories, remember that we do have a streaming group. So please, if you haven't already, go ahead and go to the Night Vision group, locate that, and become a part of that. Make sure that you favorited it, because being a part of this group, it will allow you to have early access to a lot of videos, webinars, and we want to make sure that that information is easily accessible for you. So I always just like to stress to become a part of our Microsoft Stream group. All is required is just logging in with your NID and you're in there. So just keep that in mind as we are developing training materials, because we will be putting more videos on very shortly. Next slide, please. So another teaser I wanted to provide with training is show you what some of our training materials will look like. So what exactly will a job aid look like? This is a screenshot of one of our job aids that we recently completed for now, unless there's some system configuration changes. But this is very similar to, like I had stated earlier, what you may have seen with ADDIE Notes or ADDIE Tips if you are in the PeopleSoft system. It's a very step-by-step guide on how to complete a business task. It will have the Workday Learning category in the header, along with the title, the business process title of what actions are associated with this particular job aid. It will also be, if it is applicable to mobile, you will also have desktop and mobile instructions within that job aid as well. Next slide, please. So another thing we wanted to do just to increase learning engagement and interactivity with these training materials was provide some more engaging tutorials on some key information. So we are actually working on creating some interactive tutorials for information that the UCF community could benefit from and is definitely pertinent to learn in order to engage the Workday system. So one of those examples is our tutorial that we're currently working on for the foundation data model. This is a tutorial that will be an open educational resource. You will be able to access it through a hyperlink that we'll provide on our Night Vision website. And it is a more modern way to navigate through information as you step by step, kind of how a course would be built in some ways. But it's a micro learning tool that is very easy to navigate, and it functions very similar to a website, how a website functions. So look for our interactive tutorials, and if we're able to by the 17th, maybe I can show you an example of how you would navigate through one of these tutorials. Next slide, please. Okay, well, thank you for listening to my training updates, and I am now going to pass it over to David Canova.
Thank you, Jackie. Next slide, please. So I wanted to provide some high-level information that dovetails into the information that Jackie provided on training, and that is what will you actually be doing in Workday from a transactional level. And again, we'll go into more details of this at a later time, but at least a high level of you still will be maintaining your emergency contact information, your personal information. Since we are combining Page Up into Workday, applying for jobs, even as an internal candidate, will be happening in Workday. Viewing your benefits, some of the other standard processes that we currently have, but we will have more functionality such as viewing time off balances, requesting time off, or replacing the lapper, as we've discussed in the past. But submitting and tracking expense reports, and this is at the employee level for faculty and staff. So you will have more functionality at your fingertips to be able to manage your processes moving forward. And again, this dovetails into some of the type of training, at least at a high level, that you'll be participating in moving forward. Next slide, please. So to get a little bit more granular, from a manager standpoint, you will have access to initiate and track business processes, and you'll be able to see where they're at from what level, where the process may be at in the review. You'll be approving time off requests and timesheets. Again, that's going to be at the manager level, and you'll have that ability to do that if you are a manager or supervisor in the system. And again, student employees, they'll have access to Workday as well to search and apply for jobs, maintain personal information, and view pay slips. And it's a very exciting set of functionality that we have that we're looking forward to for the student employees as well. And also for non-exempt employees, the clocking in and clocking out and submitting time will all be digital instead of the paper timesheets that we currently have. Next slide, please. So again, this gets a little bit more granular to what types of functions, depending on what your role is at the university. Everything from accounting users, creating the journal entries, procurement users, and endowments, since we're going to have integration with the current endowment system, Blackbaud with our endowment partners, and then recruiting. We're excited about the functionality that we'll have in Workday for recruiting and managing that information and setting up for onboarding. So it's really going to be a streamlined process and all-in-one system that we're really excited to roll out July 1. Next slide, please. All right, and with that, I'll turn it over to Kelly.
Thank you, David. Appreciate that. All right. Just want to give a few reminders on how to stay in the know and get involved with Night Vision. You know, we have close to 300 members that are currently in our CCAG communication network. This is a great resource, especially as we get a little bit closer to July 1st. It'll be here before we know it. In this group, we share information about what's happening with Night Vision, show demos. Really, it's a forum for getting feedback and staying engaged, not only with the members, but what's happening in their respective areas. There are a couple of really key benefits. There are monthly virtual meetings and program updates. They are the first members to kind of get a sneak peek at what's being shared. There are lots of opportunities for feedback within the meetings and beyond, including the use of the Teams chat. And that is also a great way of maintaining the conversation. So there is a link on our Night Vision website, and there is a link that will be available in the follow-up communication that comes out after this event. And then, of course, there are many other methods. Everyone receives information a little bit differently. So we do have our Night Vision website, our Night Vision email, which if you have any questions or feedback, you're welcome to send them there at any time. We do have a newsletter that comes out from Night Vision monthly. There is also the SET Gazette, which comes out roughly twice a month, depending on what's happening. There is also a feedback survey that is open constantly. So that is also a great way of sharing some feedback, either from yourself or things that you may hear in your areas. And then, as you may have seen, there are lots of events coming up, all virtual for Night Vision. There are Workday community information sessions, our exchanges, which are typically topic specific, and allow for more of an informal setting to ask questions and really get answers from those that are leading the respective areas of Night Vision. All right, without further ado, it is time for questions from you all. I see that chat has been very active, so thank you for those who have asked questions. And thank you to our Night Vision and SET leaders for going in and engaging there. Just a quick reminder for the questions. If you see questions you want asked, make sure that you are asking them, or excuse me, that you are upvoting them. And there is a little thumb that pushes it up. And anonymous is disabled, as we mentioned earlier. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And we are going to kick it off. Our very first question is for Sherry. Question is, will employees have access to personal information if employee self-service is not available and the information is not transitioned to Workday?
Yes, so there are a number of items that will not be transferred to Workday, like training, past training records, past pay stubs, and we will have the current information in Workday. The prior information will remain in PeopleSoft. We are working to create a data lake and data warehouse, and over the next few years, we plan to make it a more streamlined process, but we are planning on having a process by which you could request things. We will also have some communications coming out over the next few weeks and months with several reminders that are sharing with folks what will be there, what won't be there, and actions you could take to make sure you're storing your information for the future locally or for yourself versus having to request it in the future.
Thank you, Sherry. This next question is for Gerald. Why is UCF undertaking SET at the same time as Workday?
Excellent question. I think we're undertaking SET at the same time because Workday is just a tool to help us deliver our management, if you will, of our finances and HR functions. What we also have to do is we have to make sure that our business processes align with what we're doing. So what we are seeing throughout is that we have duplication of effort in some areas. We don't have clear and cogent bringing together, if you will, of all of the aspects of our operations. So what Workday is a tool, and what SET allows for us is to use and maximize that tool very well, while looking also at how we currently do business and try to improve upon it with efficiencies and effectiveness. I will also add that when we look at the work streams and the work that people do on a daily basis, you'll hear this expression quite a bit, generalists. So one of the things that we're doing with SET is to create centers of excellence so we can be more focused on finance areas and HR areas, and individuals will have an opportunity to be what you can say a subject matter expert in many of these areas. What we're seeing right now, honestly, we're also noticing that skills will have to be upgraded in some ways to allow for work to be done. So we're doing it holistically because we have to get a level setting, if you will. And this is an opportune time for us to do so. And it also finally ties in with how we allocate our resources at the institution and invest our resources. So you'll hear about adaptive, the new budget model, and things like that. They're mutually exclusive, but they're inextricably linked.
Thank you, Gerald. Our next question is for Jackie. Will the Workday pre-training activities be recorded? And if so, where will they be available?
Sure, great question. Yes, we're going to record them just like we record a lot of our other Night Vision events, and they will be made available through our Night Vision website. We will post about that following the end of each of those sessions, and it will also be available on our Microsoft stream as well.
Thank you, Jackie. This next question is for Maureen. When offers for new positions are not accepted, how will they be filled? Will it be offered to current employees who were not initially offered or outside hires?
Thank you, Kelly. That's a great question. So the first thing the SET leaders are doing are looking at those who expressed interest as their first choice. They're looking at those and they're contacting each person. So if you expressed interest in a role as your top choice, you should be contacted by the SET leader in that area. If you would be offered the job and you turn it down, all of the other SET leaders have access to know that you have expressed interest in their unit or division, their college or their division. So positions will be filled internally until we don't have anyone who is either qualified or interested or both in the role, and then we would post externally, but we're trying to fill everything internally first.
Thank you, Maureen. Jackie, this next question is for you. Can someone not in a specific specialty SET role participate in training offered for other SET roles, i.e. can someone in a finance SET role participate in training provided for HR SET team?
So for this first phase prior to go live, we are strategically focusing on getting those new SET roles prepared, because after go live, they have to be able to be fully operational, even if they are still undergoing on the job training. Following that, what we are looking to do, and we are still coordinating and planning this, is taking a lot of that introductory information on SET, the different business centers, how they operate, their different objectives, maybe even possibly including the different business processes or workflows that are under their particular jurisdictions. And we are going to some way package that to provide it to the UCF community so that y'all are aware of how that new workflow or multiple workflows is actually going to function. So we are in conversation of kind of having a external training and as it relates to SET, just so that we can get everybody caught up to speed. But as of right now, we generally have to focus on taking those new individuals in those roles and making sure that they're ready to serve you first. So yes, we are considering that, but stay tuned. We'll definitely advertise it if that information becomes available to you.
Thank you, Jackie. This next question is for David Canova. How secure is Workday for data security, especially with the potential of future cyber attacks?
Yes, thank you. So Workday has a state-of-the-art data center that's co-located across different areas of the United States. There's a lot of information that I can provide on how they handle security. They even encrypt data at rest in the database. So we are confident with the way Workday handles security, but another layer of security we're going to have is multi-factor authentication for each individual user. So you will have multi-factor using Duo to access your own information, and that's an extra layer of security that we'll have as part of our initiatives at UCF.
And David, I'll jump in on that too. This is Matt. Their data centers are in Virginia, Georgia, Sacramento, California, Portland, Oregon. And they also have a lot of workload that they're hosting in AWS. They've recently diversified their hosting portfolio. In October 2021, they were looking at diversification because they were tied pretty deeply into Amazon. So they struck a deal with Google Cloud Platform. So they now have workload they're also putting in GCP. And that's really financial services, banking, and retail, I think, are the three they have there. So you're seeing them diversify their hosting. So they have it on-prem, they have it off-prem. If you go to that link I put in the Workday Trust, you're going to see all of the security audits that they go through. There's about 15 to 20 security audits, like SOC 3, for example. Everything at rest is encrypted. Everything is TLS and AES 256 encryption as well. So at rest and in flight, it's encrypted. So it's pretty standard high-level security, and they do a lot of security external audits. So we feel very comfortable with the custodial obligations that Workday can provide us and do what they need to do effectively for us.
Thank you, David and Matt. Matt, this question is actually for you, this next one. Will PeopleSoft go away completely?
No, it will not. So we've got PeopleSoft Campus Solutions, and we have to maintain some legacy issues. Part of the process that Sherry has to go through is we've got 1,000 applications we have to create a lifecycle for, PeopleSoft being one of them. So PeopleSoft will sort of fade into the background as Workday's functionality increases and takes over. However, PeopleSoft Campus Solutions is still a big part of our life. So the Oracle components won't go away anytime soon. We're going to be running some duplicate infrastructure. We also have some legacy things that we need to convert over time from the PeopleSoft HR and finance side into Workday. So there's going to be some parallel running, but our goal is to deprecate things we aren't using and reduce the expense and the administrative burden associated with those duplicated functions. So it will go away, but I can't tell you when, because it's the long stream planning activity we have.
Thank you, Matt. Maureen, this next question is for you. Would any aspect of SET affect current positions that handle faculty relations / faculty excellence? For example, promotion and tenure, awards, hiring, etc.
So all of those things are very important: promotion and tenure, hiring, and faculty awards. And each college handles those things a little bit differently in their college. The folks in academic affairs, faculty excellence, they are not changing. They are a center of expertise. Gerald talked about a center of expertise a little bit ago, and those staff members are not changing. And the overall university policies are not changing. Each college can decide how they want to handle and who they want to handle promotion and tenure and awards themselves. That is up to each individual college. With regard to hiring faculty, what we hope is that the business partners and the HR directors or HR manager within each college, there will be someone designated as the contact for faculty hiring. But the actual faculty who hires faculty, that's the college and the faculty chairs and so forth. But there will be a contact within the HR business center that that faculty member or chair will work with for faculty hires. I hope that answered the question. I was trying to answer it in the chat or in the Q&A, but I don't know what happened, but thank you for asking.
No, thank you, Maureen. And you just reminded me of something that we've started to push out there. There is an exchange that will be faculty specific. I know there are a lot of questions from faculty and in regard to faculty. And so there is a time for them to ask those questions, and that is on April 5th. We will drop the link in the chat momentarily for you guys to register, and you'll see it in upcoming night vision communication. This next question is for Jackie. For the lunch and learn sessions, should we be notifying our supervisors and faculty to sign up for the lunch and learn session that pertains to them, or will our designated transition team be making the necessary notifications?
No, we're utilizing the night vision, newsletter, night vision email to make, to let the public know this is an optional session. It will be recorded. It's not, a training obligation necessarily. It's just a way to proactively get a head start in understanding these different, the different functionality in Workday. So, if you think your supervisor would like to know about it and they're not in this meeting, then yeah, I would love for you to help us out with that. And just through word of mouth, definitely engage your community and let them know what we're doing if they're not paying attention, because it could be a benefit to them.
I'd like to add just a little bit to that. So the transition teams are specifically to help transition into the SET structure within each college and division. But I would, agree and concur with Jackie that individuals in your college who are not part of SET, your supervisor or whoever, they should definitely sign up for training, because the training for SET is somewhat different than Workday. A lot of it is similar, but it's more role-based. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Jackie and Maureen. This next question is for Kat. Can someone express interest in a SET position even if the survey is closed?
At this time, we are working through the initial names of individuals who did express interest. If at some point there are additional needs that we need to open that, we may temporarily, but that's to be determined a little bit long term. Again, we've had over 400 individuals express interest, and we need to process and look at those interests first, and then we'll evaluate anyone else who has expressed interest verbally after that.
Thank you, Kat. This next question is for David. Will we still have access to Data Mart?
Thank you. So the Data Mart will be in a, it's read only anyway, but the information will be as of when we go live July 1st. And as Sherry mentioned earlier, that will end up transitioning over to the Enterprise Data Warehouse downstream, but it'll be available when we go live. It just won't be populated anymore with because the transactions will be moving to Workday.
Wonderful, David. This next question is for you, so don't go too far. Will Workday be as university-centric as PeopleSoft, unable to add non-staff, non-students, or other members of the campus community? And that was in quotes.
So just to make sure I'm understanding the question, university-centric meaning that if you need access to Workday as your employee or staff member, that will be the centralized location and repository for information if you're utilizing Workday. Certain non-paid or sponsored accounts will not be in Workday if they don't need to actually have transactions in the system or get paid or utilize the system for any other type of functionality. So the answer is yes, there will be for employees and what we're considering contingent workers. But not for what we consider the quote unquote non-paid appointments.
Thank you, David. This next question is for Tara Akala. On July 1st, how will we access reports and accounting to reflect transactions that posted on the night of June 30th? Will data mart or budget position reports be available until the fiscal year is closed so we can get final fiscal year 2022 balances and transactions?
So for the upcoming fiscal year that's closing, all of that reporting and closing of the books activity will happen in PeopleSoft. We will conduct new business with Workday upon go live. So for those who were responsible for closing the books on those activities, you'll be working in two systems for a period of time until the books are closed, our audits are issued, et cetera.
Thank you, Tara. This next question is for Maureen. Why is it required for non-exempt employees to clock in out for their lunch break now?
You know what, I'm going to ask, we've been having a lot of conversations about that, and I'm going to ask Becky Moulton or Monica Alvarez to help answer that question. And I know Becky is a panelist here, so I hope she can help us out.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. As far as clocking out, was it specifically just for lunch? I was looking for the question here.
Yes, it was asked specifically in regard to lunch.
Okay. As a whole, we want our university to behave in the same manner, right? So the majority of our campus does clock in and out for lunch currently. And in talking with leaders of the university and our internal audit department, we had decided to treat employees the same across campus. And we have had some discussions with some very specific areas about that, and we are still in talks with them. There are some areas that is a bit more of a struggle. And so we are in some talks, like I said, with those areas to see what we might be able to do with the system in order to help with that concern.
Thank you, Becky.
Mm-hmm.
This next question is for David. Will there be a one-time login that will cover all platforms, or will we log in multiple times across multiple platforms?
Thanks, Kelly. Great question. So for now, Workday will be using what's considered ADFS, which is a different authentication mechanism that you currently use from MyUCF. So for that period, when we go live, there will be two separate, you still use the same credentials, but two different, you'd have to authenticate twice. I know working with the IAM team, I know that they're transitioning over to that. So in time, there will be one login for all the different systems. But for July 1st, you would need to authenticate with Workday and PeopleSoft differently using the same credentials.
Thank you, David. This next question is for Tara. Will UCF asset history and purchase information down to the quote and invoice be available at the go live date in Workday?
I was actually just typing a response to that. You beat me to the punch. So Similar to the last response I provided, what we need to close the books and the activity will be in PeopleSoft. All of the financial activity from PeopleSoft will be converted into Workday for the past 3 years, but we'll be closing the books in PeopleSoft. Any catch-up transactions and whatnot will be brought over into Workday. Any attachments and records, source documents that are attached in PeopleSoft will not be converted over to Workday, but will be available in a read-only state in PeopleSoft as well. And then once we get the data lake or data warehouse established, all of those records will be in one place. So we're going to have a read-only state for PeopleSoft. Those that are closing the books will be able to do work in PeopleSoft. And then New Year's activity will be in Workday. So hopefully that helps answer your question.
Thank you, Tara. Jackie, this next question is for you. Will the Workday Lunch and Learn Day in the Life of a UCF employee be recorded?
Yep, we're going to record all of them. Just, that just goes back to the making sure that these resources are open and easily accessible, because we understand if, people can't attend, we would love for you to register and attend, but we want to make these materials available to you.
Thank you, Jackie. This next question is for Tara again. Sponsored emails, funding changes are handled via ePaths. How will that change and who will handle them?
I think that's probably a Becky question if you're talking about ePaths.
Sorry, getting my wires crossed
No,
here.
no
Thank
problem.
you, Tara.
I'm sorry. I'm
No, you're good. I will
with
ask
my
the question.
buttons today.
I can ask the question. Do you need me to ask the question again, Becky, or are you
Yes,
good?
please.
Yep,
please.
not a problem. Sponsored emails, funding changes are handled via ePaths. How will that change and who will handle them?
Funding changes, yes, that's in today's world, that's an ePath way of getting that done. In the future, it will be different. The work will be done within Workday. And to be honest with you, we're still ironing out the roles that will be doing that type of responsibility within Workday. So payroll accounting adjustments, funding changes, etc. And then the other part of the question for the sponsored emails, that stays in Campus Solutions.
Thank you, Becky.
Mm-hmm.
This next question is for Maureen, but Becky, you may be able to assist in answering it as well. To clarify, so A&P exempt employees will now have to clock in and out.
Yes, A&P employees do not clock in and out. They only report exceptions to their time. So if they have, had to take any sick time or vacation time, that would be reported.
But they will not clock in and out every day. That's just non-exempt employees.
Correct.
Wonderful, thank you. Real quick, in peeking at the chat, I know that there are some employees that had questions if we're going to notify you of actions that can be taken as we get to July 1st. And the answer to that is absolutely yes. There are a lot of things in the works to ensure that everybody does the things they need to do before we switch to Workday. You will see information about that through the normal channels, Night Vision newsletters, the website, special communications beyond that. So don't worry, we have a huge checklist of things. You will get action items that you need to take to make sure you're good to go when Workday goes live. And I think we've actually, believe it or not, answered all of the questions. And so we are ahead of time. If anybody has anything anything else they'd like to ask, now is the time. And to our leaders, I know Gerald, you're here, Matt. If you guys have anything else that you would like to leave the audience with, since we have a little bit of time before the official end of the event.
I'll just like to say thank you all. I've been looking at the questions that are being asked, and they're very pointed and very fair and understandable. And we will continue to work with all of you, all of the areas, all of the leads. This is a lot of work. We recognize that, and there are a lot of people behind the scenes working on this. I think Jacqueline did a very good job of laying out the training that's coming. I would ask that everyone take advantage of the training. You heard from Saressa today, but Chuck Rowley is also helping on the transition teams. Just this morning, I got, as I shared earlier, I got some information just this morning on feedback, and we're getting there. But quite honestly, people are at different stages in understanding all of the three pieces of night vision, be it Workday, which we talked a lot about today, the new budget model, which Provost Johnston and I are working on, getting more acclimated to the campus, and then SET, which really, and I like the way Matt Hall sometimes describes it, is Workday is the car and SET is the driver. I get that confused, but please remain engaged and in this process. It is a seminal moment for us in terms of our finance and HR management of the university, and we need your help. And thank you guys so much for being engaged, and the questions that you're asking. They're greatly appreciated because they make us think about all the things that we might not be seeing at the local levels.
So there is a question in the chat that has to do with faculty searches. And I would say that most of those activities should be handled in the business or finance, HR or business center within the college. Certainly administrative assistants within the college or within the department may be asked to assist with things as well. If it's a faculty search for their department, their chair, that kind of thing. But typically they'll be handled between the college business center and the college HR business center.
If I could add to that, Maureen, it's just to kind of think about, because I saw itineraries thrown in there. So that was one, and that really does take a local knowledge to organize, these 1 or 2 day long searches. So that definitely is something that would be done in those units at a local level, but sort of everything else was sort of captured in SET roles.
Kelly, this is Matt. You'd asked, or Mike, were you going to go? Jump in there. I'll anchor it out.
Sure. Just a comment from me. If you've been to several of these over the weeks and months, you've seen them move from quite general ideas to gradually more specific. And I hope you understand that. At first, we hadn't even planned precisely what the organizational changes associated with SET should be. Now we understand that well. Then we had to choose the people who were the leaders. Now we're in the middle of figuring out who's going to be in them. We're moving from general to specific to really finalized decisions. And that is on purpose. Some folks who were frustrated at the beginning because it was general, I hope you understand now, that's because we've tried to include you all along as the decisions were made and not spring them in their full glory at the end. So please keep coming. Please keep pressing. You make us do better work.
To Mike's point, we've gone from abstract to specific. And as we hit the July go live, this is a journey of 1,000 steps. And it begins with the first one. So this 1,000-mile trip is going to start in July, and it's going to be a continuous process improvement. It's going to be working towards resiliency. We're going to have issues when we go live in July, and we're going to fix them. We're going to come together as one UCF. We're going to deal with things quickly, and we're going to put a lot of care at the point of delivery. So any areas you have concern on, anything you think's at risk, let Sherry know and the team know, and we'll address them in advance, because we've done a lot of training. We've done a lot of activities to prep, but I can tell you, when you get in an airplane and you take a lot of flight training, it doesn't really matter until you get in the airplane and lift it off the ground. And that's when the actual learning starts. And that's when the real questions will start to emerge. So think through it mentally and think through the processes we need to adhere to, because it's going to be a journey and it's going to start in July. And that's when the real learning starts. So if you can think about anything that you may be of concern in advance of that, let us know. We sure appreciate everybody's engagement. Coming together as a group, a lot of different people is very helpful. And these forums are excellent. So well done, Kelly and Brett and company.
Thank you, Matt. And to piggyback on what you just said, at any time, we know there's a lot of information coming out, not only from us, but throughout the entire institution. If you have a question, ask it. Don't be afraid to fill the feedback survey or ask the Night Vision email, or whoever you feel comfortable. We're always happy to answer it. I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Sherry here to close us out.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for being here. More than 500 folks here and then more on YouTube. Really appreciate all this engagement. It just shows how important Night Vision is to the organization and how important you all are to us, as Matt Hall and Mike Johnson and Gerald Hector indicated in their remarks. So thank you all again for being here. We hope to see you next time, and have a great day. Go Knights. Charge on.